Alright everybody, it's been a while since I've done a Daily Warrior. Let's give it about a few more seconds. Hope everyone's having a great morning on Columbus Day. For those of you from out of the state, actually in Miami we don't take Columbus Day off. The schools are open today. We don't recognize Columbus Day as a holiday down here. Although there are some people with a day off and they're enjoying their boat rides. Hey Master Bennett, nice to see you. Cook Sanim. All right. Okay, let's get to it. So I don't take any stances or anything, but education is something I'm passionate about because, to be honest, it's screwed up the way we do things. So I saw, and this is not to, like I said, I'm not taking a political side here. I don't do that. California passed the law to make schools in their state start later, and in their reasoning it's because kids need more sleep, and that giving them an extra hour to get to school is probably going to help that. And I understand what their reasoning is, but the problem is it's not that. And also we've become accustomed to certain things, so changing and it starts going across the country before you start thinking about it, it affects a lot of other things like busing, parents' work, daycare, all that. So now, here's my issue. If you look at the school model, the 5-day-a-week, 8-hour-a-day model, it's 100 years old. That was introduced around the assembly line times. Henry Ford, he standardized that. And the idea and reasoning is when we change school to that model is we're preparing children to go work in a factory. There was no thought of secondary education. There was no thought of pursuing other interests, pursuing military careers. None of that was ever thought about when they made the current school model. Okay, so 100 years ago, we standardized and said 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then when they graduate high school, if they do, because you can drop out and go right to work in a factory for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And we've kept that model for 100 years, and it's really lunacy when you think about it. You know, there are countries outside of us that are actually killing us with their youth education. They're doing better than us because they have found out that if they change their school model, meaning they looked at what the issues were, right, kids have no social time, kids have no time with families, they're always spending time doing homework, they're always spending time in school, and then outside of school there's more school. They have no time for themselves. Of course the quality of life is going to go down, and of course grades are going to go down. So Norway, for example, had the worst education system in the world, had the worst students. And in 5 years they became the top model because they shortened the school day, shortened the amount of days they go to school. Of course vacations were affected like that, but it's a little different in Europe. And they don't give homework. They just tell them, hey, your kids already did work in school, it's time to go home. And they've done phenomenally well. And yes, before you mention about colleges, they come to our universities. Have you ever noticed when you graduate high school, if you made it to a university or college or whatever, it's totally different. There's no preparation for college and high schools and stuff now. Yeah, they give them a ton of work so they get used to a workload, but they're not used to that. College on some days may only be a 2-hour day, and on other days maybe a 9-hour day. Depends on how your scheduling works. Usually first year of college, one day is going to be a very long day, and 2 days are going to be next to nothing. Sometimes you maybe only go to school 2-3 times a week because your scheduling is that way. They don't prepare you for that. They don't prepare you to, like, when you go to college, like, you have more freedom because you're an adult. They don't prepare you. You studied hard, you got your good grades, you got your SAT scores, and you go to college, and there's a high dropout rate because we fail preparing children for that. We fail them. And then we try and say they need more sleep. The issue is my top two. One, there's too much homework. The teachers don't confer with each other, and they assign a ton of homework, and then that teacher signed a ton of homework, and before you know it, this kid in like 5th grade sometimes has piles of homework, and they're up till 11 o'clock at night doing homework. And you think an extra hour of sleep is going to help them? It's not going to help them. It's not going to help them at all. The other issue, the school day is too long. Why do we need them for 8 hours? If you want to start later, great. Start them at 10 o'clock, get them out at 3. 4 or 5 hours a day. If you can't accomplish that in 5 hours a day, we're failing them. If you want to do 8-hour days, cut it to 4 days a week. There's no need to have this long, lengthy day. We're just preparing them for testing so that we get our good grades and we get our funding, and then they go to college and they fail, and we're like, well, we did our job. So I don't mean to be like kind of upset, but when I'm looking at these like lame brain ideas about let's give them an extra hour of sleep, that's not going to help those kids. Extra hour of sleep, they're already getting it now because they're already going to school late. We know that. What about the parents and their work schedule? What about everything that we've come accustomed to, this horrible model of education that we have because we've decided to keep this 100-year-old thing? Okay, so if we really want to help our children, and this is just my point, let's look at the real problem. How are we educating them? Not like let's give them more time. That's not the solution there. It's the same thing in a martial arts class. I could add more requirements, but there's a tipping point where it's like these kids can't retain it. So now we have to recluse requirements, move the requirements, and see which ones actually work for them. Some requirements don't apply to certain students, and we have to, actually I have to sit here and say this group of students does not need this curriculum. This group of students does not need that curriculum. We figured that out in the martial arts years ago, and we need to figure that out with our kids, not giving them an extra hour of sleep or two. It's not going to help them. Okay, so when you're looking at these things and you see like, and I don't mean to be passionate about it, but someone who didn't like the education system, I could get a C without trying when I was a kid. I didn't want to. I did not like school because I didn't like how I was treated or how the teachers would look at you and already assume you didn't know or what you didn't know. And then they find out, oh, this guy actually knows a lot more. Why don't you try harder? It says, I do try harder. I just don't want to get to that point. You don't interest me. This doesn't interest me here. When I got to college, my grades actually got better. And I got to college with a low SAT. The SAT says I was a 700. You're a national average. There's no way you're going to make it. So they told me, man, your average is 3.8. Don't you want an A? It's like, not really. It didn't interest me. The school model was horrible. I didn't want to be a part of it. And I got to college, and I got an education. I started a business. And you know what FIU told me when I got in? I took their test. They said, the SAT does not determine your intelligence. The testing in schools do not determine your intelligence, sir. What it determines for us is how you handle these matters. And you aced our test, which proves that we feel the education system is flawed. That was FIU back in 1994 when I went in. You had to take a test that was, you had 31 possible answers, and you had to get at least 19 correct. Because they just did that to say, look, we'll accept you. We have some things we like. You know, your SAT score is average. We want to make sure you can handle college. I took that test. I got like a 29. You know, I actually took it twice. First time I got a 19, they told me, I want you to go through remedial. It was a freshman experience course. Do the test again at the end. And I almost got a 31. Perfect, almost perfect. 29, around there. And they told me this. The education system does not prepare you for college, sir. It only prepares you to pass tests. And we could see by your grades and by everything you've done, you have some intelligence. You just didn't like school. Obviously. They figured that out. And I took difficult classes at FIU. My education was in health education. It was a double major, health education, exercise physiology, and I minored in religious studies. So, I mean, I did it. Now, did I complete my degree? I didn't complete my degree. I opened a business, and here I am today. And many people thought I should have went for a business degree. It just wasn't interesting to me. So that's the thing. We want our kids to be better. Don't blame the teachers. Don't blame anything but the system that we've come accustomed to for 100 years. You can't change it like that. It's not going to happen overnight. So let's attack the problem. Reduce the homework. Give them more time, like at home. Reduce the length of the day. That makes more sense. Not giving them an extra hour of sleep. That's not going to help those poor kids who are already stressed out trying to get homework done. They're up till like 2 in the morning, and it's like a 10-year-old. I see it all the time. And then sometimes, yeah, I tell the parents, like, you know what, do double back-to-back classes. It's okay, because they want to get their martial arts training, because this is the only thing he does or she does outside of school, because there's just no time. And they come here at 5 o'clock, and they'll say till 7, because they won't get 2 hours of training, because maybe they can't come tomorrow. And I say, that's fine, do it. I sympathize. So that's it. That's my little speech about our horrible education system and the ridiculousness of us trying to fix it by adding an extra hour of sleep. So that's it, guys. That's my rant. That was episode 98. We'll see you guys for the next two. Soon we'll do 100.